Good afternoon, my name is Olga Atamanova, and I want to thank everybody who joins us in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform, both offline and online. We continue our operations today. Today's day 726 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor, and now we will be talking about the situation in Ukrainian borders with Poland. Joining us online is Andriy Demchenko, the spokesperson of the State Border Service of Ukraine. Mr. Andriy, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Mr. Andriy, we know that the protests on the border with Poland are continuing. Today we've seen the news about the Vice Prime Minister Kubrakov being in negotiations with the head of National Bureau of Security of Poland due to the blockade of border by the Polish protesters. So what is the situation for the time being? What are the latest news? Well, basically the blocking of movement continues for the time being in 6 directions in the checkposts of Ягодин, Устилух, Угринів, Раварюська, Шегині, Краківець. In total, in all of those areas, as of this morning in the territory of Poland, in the lines in the direction of Ukraine, there were about 2,900 cargo trucks waiting to cross the border. The biggest concentration was near the checkposts of Ягодин and Краківець, and at the same time, due to the accumulation of trucks in the line, due to the blocking of movement of cargo trucks, we see the significant decrease of the number of cargo trucks which cross the border for the time being. The movement is more or less intense in the area of Краківець checkpost. The situation is way worse in the area of checkpost Шегині. And on top of that, talking about the checkpost of Ягодин, during the previous days, the Polish side was almost accepting no cargo trucks, and there was no movement from the Polish side as well, due to the fact that the protesters refused to let any vehicles through in this area. Today in the night, according to the information that we have from our Polish colleagues, the situation changed a little bit, not critically, but still the Polish farmers decided to let just a couple of cargo trucks through per hour to Ukraine, so the movement resumed. But obviously we cannot reach the indicators in terms of number of the cargo trucks which we would like to cross the border. Again, in the area of checkpost Ягодин, it's one of the biggest infrastructure directions which is capable of letting around 12 to 1400 cargo trucks through in both directions per day. Sometimes that figure may be even bigger, but now within the last 2 days, almost no single cargo truck was able to cross the border in either direction. Mr. Andriy, we see from the news that it's not only about not crossing the border by our cargo trucks, but also there is information about the obstacles for the passenger vehicles. Is it true that the passenger vehicles passage is blocked on a number of checkposts? Well, first of all, the Polish farmers block the movement of cargo trucks. They promise not to block the movement for buses and light vehicles, and what we observe, the buses and the light vehicles continue crossing the border both in the direction of Ukraine and in the opposite direction, going from Poland to Ukraine. So basically I cannot say that they blocked the movement for all types of vehicles. Obviously we were paying attention to video materials that were showing up online when the protesters blocked the passage of the buses. But I think that their presence in the roads just complicates the movement for certain categories of transport, and to make the way around the places of concentration of Polish farmers, but the movement of buses continues in the direction of Ukraine, and also Polish side continues receiving buses going from Ukraine to Poland and further. Mr. Andriy, what is the situation in the other checkposts on the border with other countries of European Union? Within the last couple of days, we see the growing number of cargo trucks in the border with Hungary and Slovakia. For example, in the checkpost of Uzhhorod, in the border with Slovakia, as of this morning, there were around 500 cargo vehicles in line waiting to cross the border in the direction of Ukraine. And in Hungary, in the area of checkpost Tisa, as of this morning, there were around 580 cargo trucks waiting to cross the border to Ukraine. The increase of this number is due to the fact that the Polish checkposts are blocked. This is why both the drivers and the logistic companies try to find other places where they can cross the border. At the same time, at 1300 today, in the area of checkpost Uzhhorod, in the border with Slovakia, again, the Slovakian farmers initiated an activity to draw everyone's attention to their activities by blocking the movement for cargo trucks. But according to the information from our Polish colleagues, such activities may only continue within 1 hour, and most likely, we hope that now they are about to be over. But whether it is really so, or the blocking continues for more extended period, we will continue tracking the situation and report accordingly. Mr. Andriy, I cannot help but asking about the situation in other borders, in the eastern borders of a country. So what is it now where the State Border Patrol Service is on duty? Are there any changes in the border with Belarus and of course with Russian Federation? Well, those are two different areas. Just like before, in the area of the border with Belarus, we continue reinforcing the border. But on the other side of the border, Russia doesn't have enough forces to commence an invasion. However, we still understand the threat posed by that direction, so we are ready to any developments on the situation. This is why we continue reinforcing the border all the way from Liniv to Chernihiv region. Talking about the border with the Russian Federation, the situation is different due to the shellings that are performed by the enemy on a daily basis on the territories of Chernihiv, Sumy and Kharkiv regions. Using all kinds of weapons, Russia continues inflicting strikes using artillery, mortars, small arms, aviation, and reinforcing the border in that area is pretty complicated, almost impossible due to the constant incessant shelling. This is why the security and defense capacity of our country is ensured in the area the closest possible to the border, sometimes a couple of 100 meters from the border, sometimes a couple of kilometers from the border, to make sure that the units of the State Border Guard Service which stay in that area, along with the units of other units of security and defense forces, to reinforce them that they are capable of counter any enemy attacks possible, that they are able to seek cover against the shellings performed by the enemy. And also I can add that within the last period we observe certain intensification of enemy work with the UAVs that they use for reconnaissance purposes and to inflict strikes. Meanwhile, our troops use all the possible capabilities to counter the strikes of the enemy UAVs, and the threat is still there in terms of use of the sabotage groups by the enemy. However, within the last couple of days we haven't documented any such teams, but they were the most active in Sumy area, in Sumy region. Also, the sabotage teams were working the enemy sabotage teams were active in Kharkiv area, a little bit less in Chernihiv region, but it does not relieve the threat because the enemy used their sabotage teams in Chernihiv region to enter our territory, to identify the places of deployment of security and defense forces, to inflict further strikes, or to fulfill their tasks. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. If you have any questions on the floor, please proceed. Can you please comment on the news? There is an information disseminated with reference to the State Bodyguard Service of Ukraine about the possible invasion of the northern regions from Russian Federation. What can you comment on that? Well, I've mentioned that we continue reinforcing our border. Talking about the section of the border with Belarus, Russia doesn't have enough concentration of forces to reinitiate the invasion. Let me remind you that Russia has withdrawn all of their units from Belarus that were located there for the either training purposes or coordination purposes with Belarusian units. They were training together in the training grounds, and as soon as those troops were withdrawn to Russia, there were no new units rotated to Belarus. This is why that direction remains of threat to us, but for the time being we don't document any significant threat from that area. But again, we have to be vigilant, we have to be ready to any developments of the situation, and even regardless of the existing situation, we still continue to reinforce our defense capabilities to counter any challenges possible in case the situation changes. Talking about the situation with the Russian border, Russia has certain amount of forces on their territory, around 19 to 20,000 servicemen, but talking about the whole length of the border with Russia under control of Ukraine, the forces that Russia wields in this direction are not enough for the reinitiation of the full-scale invasion. We can never exclude the fact that if Russia resorts to any such activities, they will be more of a tactical character, and any other activities exercised by Russia in the border with Ukraine, they are first of all aimed at having Ukraine maintain certain number of its units reinforcing that area, and without transferring them to other more important directions where the active warfare is going on. Thank you very much, Mr. Andriy, for joining our broadcast. Let me remind you, joining us was Andriy Demchenko, the spokesperson of the State Bodyguard Service of Ukraine. Thank you for this important information, and we continue working together for our victory. Thank you for staying tuned. Please follow our announcements. Our team is working for the schedule for tomorrow. We would like also to thank our security and defense forces, and glory to Ukraine.